Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. One of the many effects of the pandemic is an interest in raising backyard chickens. Earlier this spring, hatcheries reported a surge in new customers. Orders all across the country were pouring in as people looked to birds for eggs, meat, and even companionship. As a result, a lot of people are raising chickens for the first time. Their spring birds are now 3 to 4 months old, and they're wondering, when will my chickens lay eggs, or when will it be ready to eat? Across the Fence sought answers from UVM Extension.
So this chicken right here would be like what would be called a pullet. That's a young female chicken. Okay, she has all of her feathers. She's all feathered out. She's out kind of free ranging. She's within a fence to protect her from predators, but she's fine outside. She doesn't need any more heat, even at nighttime, because she's fully feathered, and she's growing well, and she just needs some protection and some feed and time before she will join the laying flock.
What should you be feeding chickens at this stage of growth?
Okay, so even though this chicken is, outside in this beautiful yard, she still needs a balanced poultry ration. Okay, so there are different rations. There's starter for young chicks, and then we move on to a grower. And around 16 weeks of age, we're going to switch this pullet to a layer ration. The layer rations are a little higher in calcium, so that when they're ready to start laying, they'll have enough calcium to produce nice, strong eggshells on their eggs.
What about water? What do they need at this stage, Martha?
They need clean, fresh water all the time. You want to be sure that they have water, even in the heat. You've got to refill your waterers, or you're going to increase the size of your waterers so that they don't run out, when you're not at home or when you're gone to work or whatever. Always have clean water. Now, when it gets really hot, you can do things like add a little swimming pool. As long as the pullets are good size, they may even get in there and walk around a little bit. You don't want it so deep they're going to drown. You don't want it like a bucket where they could get inside and not be able to get out. But these little kiddie pools that you see, they work fine for chickens too.
There's a lot of talk about free-range chickens. So this is one, making sure that even though they're free-range, they get enough to eat, but also there's safety concerns with free-ranging too, right?
Yes, there's true free-ranging in which you would have none of these fences. You would just let your chickens into your yard and they could go wherever they wanted, but that can cause a problem. They can go over to the neighbors and dig up their flower garden, or that also means that predators have easy pickings on your chickens. And that could be anything from raccoons, that could be foxes, hawks, and there are even owls that are out in the daytime. So free ranging, if you're truly going to free range, you've got to be prepared to lose a few birds. So then there's kind of what I call modified ranging, which is that you let your birds out within an enclosure. Some people use a portable fence system where they can move it to give them fresh grass. But keep in mind, even though there are insects in this enclosure, you still have to feed those chickens. They're not going to get all their nutrition from picking up a few insects or worms.
Where are we in terms of this chicken being ready to lay eggs?
So this chicken here is probably about 10 or 12 weeks. Most breeds will start laying between 20 to 24 weeks. There are some of the smaller breeds that may start laying as early as 16 or 17 weeks. But most of the heavier breeds like we're seeing here today, those are going to be well over 20 weeks before they start laying. So that may put you well into the fall, depending when you started your chicks. And then you need to keep in mind that to be good productive layers, chickens need at least 16 hours of daylight. So that may mean supplementing light in the coop come fall.
So we're still a little ways away from laying. We've got our chickens ranging, they're eating insects, you still need to feed them, we're making sure we're keeping up with the water. What are any other care tips that we should be thinking about at this time?
This year we're seeing a huge problem with raccoons. So what I recommend is that you lock your chickens in your coop at night and that the coop be secure. So if you've got a portable chicken tractor, that means that you need either a electric fence around that at night, or you need to have wire buried in the ground so that the raccoons can't just dig under the edge of your coop and go in and kill your chickens. You know, take a look around your coop and secure it. There are other predators, but raccoons seem right now to be the worst.
Let's just recap. Give me the top 3 things we need to know at this stage when the chicken is, you said 24 weeks?
Right, so you're gonna wanna get her, you've invested a lot of money in this bird already. You know, you've purchased a chick or a started pullet, so now it's about providing her what she needs to grow to get her to lay eggs. So, you know, plenty of fresh water, good balanced diet. If you feed treats, whether it's mealworms, when it's really hot, people like to feed things like watermelon or, you know, blueberries. You can feed table scraps, you know, like leftover squash from your garden, cucumbers. But remember, they still need that balanced nutrition that's provided in that bag of feed. And so be mindful of what you're feeding them. Protect your investment so that you can get, you know, eggs in, you know, a few more months.
More information about raising poultry at home can be found at eExtension, which is the website for the National Extension System. The address is poultry.extension.org. The website offers guides to get started, a blog, and an Ask an Expert option. You may have heard about the Spitfire. It's a Revolutionary War boat constructed in Whitehall, New York, by Americans who were preparing for the British advance in 1776. The Spitfire patrolled Lake Champlain under the direction of Benedict Arnold. When the two sides clashed in the Battle of Valcour Island, the Spitfire was sunk by the British. It was discovered upright and perfectly intact on the lake floor in 1997 by the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum's survey team. To learn more, students in the UVM Reporting and Documentary Storytelling program spoke with Museum Director Emeritus Art Cohn.
This boat is so special to the American story. This boat is so clearly under threat that this boat ought to be recovered, conserved, and put on permanent exhibition to the public as a touchstone to our early history. So in 1775, Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, with a sidebar for Benedict Arnold, seized Lake Champlain by seizing the forts and the large boats. And so they are masters of the lake, which is really important at that time. And so they control the lake. The British are surprised because they didn't know there was a war going on, the ones who were up here anyway. They were frustrated. They wanted to get back control of the strategic waterway. And they meet on October 11th. And that's a 5-hour engagement, every bit as swashbuckling and horrific as naval fleets and that kind of combat was in the 18th century. Cannon fire, splinters, men ripped apart and killed, big casualties on the American side. 10% of the crew is killed and wounded. The only reason the British and the Americans stopped fighting is because it got too dark to see each other. And so darkness ends the engagement. The British pull back to create a blockade so they can keep the Americans where they are, because that's where they want them. They know that the next day they're going to re-engage this ragtag fleet of row galleys, captured British boats, and gunboats, 8 gunboats. And so they form a blockade at the southern end of Valcour Island, that channel. And Arnold stops, has a council of war, and calls his senior officers over and says, 10% of our guys are gone. We've expended 3/4 of our ammunition. What do you think we ought to do? And the plan becomes, and it's really Arnold's plan, let's escape. now that we see what the British have put on the water, the only thing we can really do is escape to fight again. And so he, in one of the more remarkable events, within this remarkable event, he rows silently his fleet, single file, with a shrouded light in the back of each vessel to guide the next one coming, past that British blockade that's been set up to stop him. And on that retreat, his boats are barely floating. I mean, they've just had a 5-hour cannon engagement with the British. This is an escape for survival. And on that escape, 2 other boats are found to be unable to be kept up. And so the choice is to abandon them during the retreat, because Arnold actually makes it past the blockade. Now he's rowing and sailing, hell-bent to get back to Fort Ticonderoga, Mount Independence, and the protection of those guns. And 2 boats can't make it, so they're abandoned. When a ship goes down as a true shipwreck, it's got all the material culture of its day, the technology of its day, the use of its day. And this particular boat was a warship built under the auspices of Benedict Arnold to fight the British and hold Lake Champlain. And she went to the bottom, we now know, perfectly upright into very deep water, and sits now in very deep water as she landed, on her hull, with her mast still standing full height, and her bow cannon still searching for the enemy.
Our thanks to Art Cohn and the Maritime Museum, and also to students in the UVM Reporting and Documentary Storytelling Program, which is part of the Center for Research on Vermont in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. For more information on the Spitfire and other historic shipwrecks of Lake Champlain, as well as programs offered by the Maritime Museum, check the website on your screen, lcmm.org. One other important footnote: the Spitfire and other shipwrecks are protected by federal law. Divers are prohibited from disturbing any vessels or their contents. And that's our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.